Green light or red light, whatever it is. Hello, everybody. I'm Captain Jim Palmer, the Dream Business Coach, and I'm the founder of the Dream Business Mastermind and Coaching Program, creator of Dream Business Academy, founder of No Hassle Newsletters, which is my extraordinary done-for-you newsletter program that I created in 2007. I served over 1,200 small business owners in 9 countries. Didn't even know there were 9 English-speaking countries. Shows my naivete there. And most importantly, I'm the host of Dream Business Radio, now in its 10th year. This is episode 518. Welcome to a fantastic live edition. I have just a tremendous special guest today, Stephanie Feger. Stephanie, how are you doing today?
Well, I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. And there's, so we just met each other like 2 weeks ago, and it's like we have
but
so
you're
much in
family now,
common.
Jim. You're family now.
It's totally like if you go, all of a sudden you just meet somebody and you're on the same page. It's
awesome.
Pretty cool. So I'll give Stephanie a proper introduction in a moment. But this episode, as all other previous episodes, I have one sponsor, and it's me. So I can approve this for Dream Business Radio. It's brought to you by the Dream Business Mastermind and Coaching Program, the ultimate mastermind for growth-oriented entrepreneurs. If you're tired of slow to no growth, if you're like so focused on and just you're overwhelmed, but you want to get unfocused, I should say, check out dreambizcoaching.com, dreambizcoaching.com. And I know I read that fast, but I'm okay because it's my business. So I'm excited to get to my interview. So without any further ado, Stephanie Feger, she's the owner and chief strategist of the Empower PR Group. She is passionate about empowering nonfiction writers, authors, and authorpreneurs. I love that word. And laser-focused marketing strategies and tactics to help you, check this out, write books that sell. So it's not enough just to say, hey, I published a book. So that's only half the battle. It's got to sell. And how to promote their books to those people who want and need them the most. I'll tell you, this is a very, very well-written introduction, which tells me she's very good at the PR side. So as an author herself, Stephanie merges her love of books with her incredible skill set in marketing to help nonfiction authors make their author impact. Stephanie, once again, welcome to Dream Business Radio. I'm so glad we connected.
Me too, Jim. And I just love how call it whatever, call it the universe, capital L, life, God, whatever, how the world brings the right people into your life at the right time. And I remember, our first meeting and thought, yeah, this guy's family. This guy's family.
Well, speaking of family, Jeff Herring is a longtime member of the Dream Business Mastermind and also family, kind of like a brother. So we're all kind of all on that same page. So welcome, Mr. Herring. Anyway, Stephanie, my loyal listeners, and I can't believe it. When I started this podcast, is it 10 years? I think it was 2012, because my intros just sounds the same, and then we'll have 3 more calendar years go by. But when I started the podcast, I actually thought, man, I'm late to the party. Look at all these thousands of podcasts. Now there's millions or billions, right, of podcasts. And but it's astounding to me that if you stick with something, if you're persistent and consistent, now
that's the name of the game.
So I don't understand why these pictures who are they hiding from? Are they in, witness protection? I don't see their picture, but I appreciate the message. Anyway.
And he thinks you're good people. So that's amazing.
Yeah. And you can tell that Stephanie and I get along, because I'm probably being a little more silly than usual, but let's get to some good stuff. Stephanie, the listeners of this podcast for years have told me they love the strategies and the tactics, but they also enjoy the backstories of the entrepreneurs that I bring on, because I think there's a motivation and an inspirational factor that gets involved. And I can remember that because when I was in a really tough situation, maybe 3-5 years in, and then I started going to seminars, and I'm hearing not just the strategies that you hope to learn, but the backstories. I'm like, oh, so somebody else was eating, macaroni and cheese for a long time, right?
Do you know what I had for lunch today?
I know, right? Another mastermind member, Phil Brakefield. Thank you for checking in. So Stephanie, are you a first generation entrepreneur? Parents, grandparents, like who showed you there's something else other than direct deposit?
Yeah, well, remember that capital L life I was talking about? Life decided it for me, not me. I actually was having a cozy, lovely job working at a large national nonprofit that I had been there for over a decade, and actually planned to retire there. Literally, had already planned it all out. when I kind of got this feeling of corporate layoffs coming.
Hmm.
And, this is something, that I think a lot of people face and are uncomfortable talking about, that it happens. And I think it was very important to me to realize that, to keep my eyes always open and know that you can reinvent yourself, and you are bigger than any job title. You are
Hmm.
bigger than any job. There's so much more to you than that. So I got wind that there was some corporate layoffs coming, and I called up my business bestie and said, "Hey, our department might be impacted." And I'll never forget. She's like, "No, Stephanie, no, no, no. We'll be great. They can't do without us." And I laughed. And Jim, she was like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, they can. It's called chess pieces on the chessboard of corporate America, right?
Oh
Yes,
boy.
they can." And
Yep.
so she said, "Well, we started this conversation, and she asked me, 'Well, what would you do if you weren't doing this?'" And I'm like, "Well, I have no clue, because I had been there for so long. I'd gotten very comfortable,
Hmm.
and I knew what I was doing like the back of my hand. It was really comfortable." Anyways, long story short, we flipped the script, and I said, "I don't know, but what do you think I should be doing?" And that's when she opened the door for me. And I actually
Ah.
was talking to her the other day, because I wrote about a chapter about her in my forthcoming book. She's like, "I didn't realize I had such a pivotal charge in your life." I'm like, "Are you kidding? You are the reason I am doing what I'm doing, because I was comfortable." I did not want to write a book. That was not me. I am now about to publish my third. I did not want to start a business. My husband wanted to. And now I'm the entrepreneur. It's crazy. So
Mm.
no, we did not have entrepreneurship in my
All right.
backdrop.
Well, I know you're too young to remember this book unless it's one of those required readings from the Better Business. But there was a book, and I forget who wrote it, but it was called "Get Fired and Get Fired Up." And how many
Mm.
people actually start a business after
Yeah.
they lose their job? Now, which was
Yep.
my case. I mean, I
Yep.
worked for entrepreneur companies my whole life, and then I thought I'm going to have a business someday. But when I lost my job, I still had four teenagers at home, and it just didn't seem like the time. Well, my story got at other plans. So 18 months later, I
Absolutely.
start a business broken in debt.
Yeah.
But it was interesting that so many people, it's not like you hit bottom, although I kind of hit bottom,
Mhm.
but then you can only go up. So
Yeah.
sometimes losing your position, we'll sanitize the fired part. Losing your
Yeah.
position isn't the worst thing in the world. But so you bounce back, you started this business. Was it initially based in PR, or did you say, man, I'm a good writer, I want to write books? Like what came first?
Oh, Jim. So I wish I could tell you there was this elaborate plan that I had, and
You knew every step, right?
I knew every step. But here's what happened. You ready? I was impacted by a corporate layoff. Over 600 people were laid off during that
Oh,
time, and our whole
wow.
department was. So everybody else was really sad. But behind the scenes, I had been writing a book that I hadn't taken action on doing. So I thought, okay, maybe it's time. So I
Okay.
go and I published my book about 6 months later. And right before the book came out, I was on a call with my business book coach cohort, and I shared my book launch strategy, because that's what I was charged to do. And in doing that, I got off the call, and I get a phone call from my publisher and my book coach. Now, I'm going to call it Catholic guilt. You can call it whatever you want. Here I am sitting here thinking, "Oh my gosh, I messed up. They're not going to publish my book. Why are you calling me?" And instead, it was the opposite. They said, "Stephanie, how do you know how to launch a book?" And I said, "Well, it's not rocket science, right?" Like, they're like, "Oh, but it is." I'm like, "But it's not." And I'm going back and forth. And I realized that they didn't know that my backdrop, I was, my corporate career was in PR communications and marketing. My book was not that. My book was a memoir focused on inspiration, motivation,
Hmm.
redefining success and perspective. So we
But you
hadn't
knew but
really.
you knew instinctively that you had to use the PR to get the book out there.
Yeah, like, that was actually my favorite part. I actually,
Wow.
about halfway through writing the book, I was already like, "Oh, and then I can try this, and what if I strategize with this, and what about this partner?" I had already gone down that path, but they didn't know it. So I'll never forget the day they both told me, "Oh my gosh, there's a whole group of people out there that need what you do." Now, what was happening behind the scenes is I had already, and being impacted by the layoff, I had already mentally, like, come to the realization that that part of my life was like a closed book, closed chapter. Now I'm
Mhm.
going to be going in a different route. People have been asking me about doing life coaching, which, Jim, I giggled at, like, I don't have my life together, but you want me to be like, okay. Like, I was just really open-minded to what I was supposed to do. And
Yeah.
so my publisher came to me and said, "Would you be willing to help some of my authors?" And I was like, "No, no. And I'm like, well, why? No, no. And so I very begrudgingly, because she was like constantly asking, I was like, fine, okay, we'll try. I mean, maybe I'll help this one author, but I have other things I have to do. And weirdly enough, all these authors started finding me, and they just
Mm,
like kept finding me. And I would be like, why are these people? I had no logo, no business name, no website, nothing. People started coming to me.
that's
And
crazy.
very quickly I realized, oh my gosh, this is why God did this, because
Yeah.
marketing is in my DNA. Communications and storytelling and relationship building is a part of me. And maybe I'm supposed to help people who have a message to share instead of a corporation.
Yeah, so you said a couple things there. I'm gonna actually call out one person here that I know is watching. Actually, the person whose face didn't show up, Sandy Lou. I've known her for an awful long time. Met her through our mutual bestie, Carmen. But Sandy Lou, I hope you heard what Stephanie said. There was a message I had to get out. There were people that needed to hear my message.
Mhm.
Sandy Lou is an incredible story, and she's helping a lot of people now. But I know she's got so much more, and so I'm so glad you're watching this interview, Sandy Lou. So Stephanie, so your book did really well, and now
Mhm.
you're kind of launching this PR. Did you go right? Did you come up with the name Empowered Author, or like how did that happen?
I got a funny story about that.
All right.
And actually, it took a long time. You might have been the first person that even asked me about this before. So I did not have a business name for a long time, and I actually didn't want to tell people what I was doing because I didn't have capacity. It was like, please, no more. They keep coming out of the woodworks. There's no more to give. But I realized right around the COVID era, beginning of COVID, I was driving down the road. I'm like, it's time. It's time to have a name. It's time for us to like. I would love a name. And I was driving down the road and it hit me. So the woman who was my business bestie that encouraged me to start writing and to write a book, and then I went on to do this. When we worked together, people would say when we came together, they would call us the Power Twins. When
Okay.
Stephanie and Marie came together, things got done and done well. And so we had actually been noodling over the years on what would it look like if we ever created our own business. Now, Marie was leading it. She's the one that wanted to be the entrepreneur, not me. And
Mm-hmm.
yet here I was in this situation. And so I'm driving down the road. I'm like, power PR. Interesting. And I'm like, no. And then it was like, divine discussion. It was like, Stephanie, what you're doing is helping empower people.
Oh,
And I'm empowering authors first and foremost so they can empower their readers. It is a pay it forward of empowerment. And that's why empower is added to it. Now, the capital
so
P is an O.
did
Yeah.
she actually use the name Empower like four
No.
times, like you just said?
No, 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 but she just said we had just talked about the power twins, but as I started reflecting, like really, and again, this is probably my background in branding, right? How my brain works. Like,
Mm-hmm.
really, what is it that I do? And I thought, oh my gosh, it's empowerment. Because here's the deal. In the world of PR marketing and communications, if you don't understand it, it can be scary and uncomfortable. And you can actually feel like you're getting taken advantage of, or you don't know the next right move. And how I have built this business is completely opposite. The curtain is pulled back. And I always say, anybody that works with us, I want them to do it because they want to, not because they don't know how to do something
Right.
themselves. So empowerment is just our DNA. So I was really pumped to do Empower PR Group.
So, Stefan, I'm gonna reveal something to our listeners and viewers here, which I never. I mean, I don't hold back too much, but I always tell my guests, just so you know, don't give me any 3-word answers, or I'll run out of questions. You're getting an A at your answers so far. We're killing it.
I told you I don't
I
know how to do
know.
3 words.
Oh my gosh. So let me ask you, what comes first? The message, the book, the business? Does
Mm.
I mean, just people do people create a book?
Mhm.
Excuse me, a book business and go, well, maybe a
Mhm.
book will help me. Like, what do you
Mm.
think comes first?
Yeah, the chicken or the egg.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question, and it's true. It's a difficult one because it can come in many ways. Typically, I help nonfiction authors. That tends to be the clientele that I support, and for many of them, it is the message that becomes the underlying piece. It's that story. It's that itch that you can't. That anti itch cream won't quit. Like you
Yeah.
feel it within, and you got to get it out. Typically, to me, that is because you have found something the world absolutely needs, and people keep asking you about it, and you're tired of talking about it. Like you want to put it out in a way that's consumable. So it typically in the nonfiction space, I find it's this message crafting that's really important, because whether it's a memoir and you have to have life experiences to be able to write to it, or whether it's your career and a skill set, maybe you have to have experienced things to know what's right, wrong, or indifferent, what worked
Hmm.
best, what didn't. So usually for me, the message will start to float to the top. Now, the differentiating piece is this understanding of, will your readers consume it? The people who need your book or your message, are they going to consume it in this way? And this is where I say, you asked, is it like the business or the book at that point? Some people need what you have to say, but they aren't going to read it. That is not the way they do it. And so I always say, everybody has a story to share. I
So
actually do not believe everybody
what's the
needs to write a
big
book.
reason they don't read it? Because they don't know they need it, or it's written poorly? Like, why do you say that?
No. So some target audiences do not consume information through a book. They would
Okay.
much rather, so I talk a lot about
Oh,
your
watch
right,
YouTube or something.
yeah, your target audience, your niche is actually sub-niched into two more, and one of them will value time over money, and the other will value money over time. For the people who, I always get this mixed up how I say it. For the people who value time over money, they aren't going to pick up the book usually, maybe an audiobook, but they're probably going to invest in you. If you have a message that you can help, they're probably going to say, Stephanie, Jim, will you just do it? Do it for me. But for those who value money over time, they might much rather absorb your message and try some things out on their own. They might absorb it and need that test to see if you're a good fit. The other thing is your book could also be a way to up level you as a thought leader. So
That's
again,
right.
no longer are you the person that just talks about it. You're the person that wrote the book about it.
Yeah, because there's authors and then there's everybody else. I've got a book in me, right? So
Yes.
I
Yes.
used to tell people when I was doing my own Dream Business Academy events, you've got to completely suck at it to take away the positioning that simply holding up your book on stage,
Agree.
right?
Agree.
Because I learned something many years ago from my editor, Ann, been with me a long time. She says most people, even with the best of intentions, don't get past the first 1/3 of the book.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I thought
It's
that's
hard.
interesting.
It's hard.
But I thought of it because my to be read pile, like everybody's, was really big for quite a few years. And I'm like, as soon as I got, oh, that's 3 nuggets. All right, let's go to the next one, right?
Yeah.
Instead of thinking there's 22 more.
Mm.
And so
Mm.
it's really what's in the book also. But
Yeah.
the bigger point, I want to make sure people catch this. It's not just the written books. I remember,
Right.
I think it was after I wrote my 3rd book, The Fastest Way to Higher Profits. They started approaching me about doing my books on Audible. I'm like, I'm too busy. Got this, that, and the other thing. I don't want to do it. Plus, I don't want to hear my own stupid voice and blah, 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 all that little head trashy stuff.
Yeah.
And but then I figured out, and I think I read a statistic where 60 or 70% of the books being consumed were audiobooks.
Yep.
So I decided, so the last 3 books, certainly Decide, Stop Waiting, and Just Say Yes, are also an audio. And so,
Awesome.
and then people go, well, I don't have, I can't afford a studio. Well, I had my home studio
Mhm.
so I went into my home. This is me on
Mhm.
social media. So I was in my home studio this weekend recording my book. My home studio was my bedroom closet
Oh, it's
because
always the closet.
it was
Closet.
carpeted. There's clothes. It's you shut the door and it's
Yeah.
like, goosh. And I'm like,
I
that's it.
know.
I got this little microphone here on my laptop and I read my book.
Okay, Jim, I'm going to be vulnerable and tell a
Let's
funny
share.
story.
Go ahead. All right.
So I take myself on a quarterly CEO retreat. I think any
Mm-hmm.
business owner should, and I book them in January. I'm going on one this weekend. I go 30 miles from my house. So it's just to be away from family, get in kind of the headspace. So I really enjoy going to a specific hotel chain because they're just nice. They have a little restaurant or a little
Mm-hmm.
kitchenette in there. Anyways, every time I bring my podcasting equipment and I go into their little bitty closet, which is not a closet, it is like an IKEA nook with a curtain. And I
Okay.
sit there and record my podcast in there with the clothes and everything like that. And I know that the hotel, because I tell them, they're like, you're so silly. I'm like, no, it is the small, intimate space. I'm talking to myself and I'm really having fun with it. And anyways, yeah. So closets are a podcaster, an audiobook, friend.
Yeah, and so when I wrote Just Say Yes, of course, that's when we were on the boat. And so our master stateroom, it's officially the name for a boat bedroom, was carpeted, the bed and drapes, and it made an amazing. So shut the door, and I just recorded the book over like a weekend of bad
That's
weather. I
awesome.
just locked
That's
myself in.
awesome.
Oh
That's
my
awesome.
gosh, so many things. Gosh, so many things I want to ask you. So, writing a book and writing a book that's actually marketable, which means getting the
Uh-huh.
book sold,
Yep.
literally two different things. Can you address
Absolutely.
that for a minute?
Absolutely. So early in this career of mine, I started noticing this unspoken element of the book process and the book publishing journey. The authors would come to me. I'll never forget one of the first authors I worked with. I every book I touch or every book we help, I read. I just believe
Hmm.
in that. Like, how can I market a book if I've not read it and I can't believe in it? And so I put together a marketing plan for her. And one of the things was talking about some nuances with her target audience. And I remember her looking at me going, "Well, where were you when I was writing the book?" And I'm like, "Well, I was here. I just didn't know you needed me." Right. And it was this epiphany to me that, oh my gosh, yeah, anyone can actually write a book. Not the successful authors are the ones that write a marketable book that
Mm.
look at the book as a conduit for what's the next step and what do they want to do. And it is a missed art in this industry. So I always say that every author is writing two drafts. The first draft you write for you. The writing process is extremely cathartic. Get it out, don't overthink it. And then some people will stop there. That to me is what a writer goes that's the writer in you. The author is the one that takes draft number 2 and looks at the manuscript and goes, "All right, let me think about who's reading it. Do they
Hmm.
need all this? What do they need? What don't they need? How can I get my message across in the most effective way? And am I using every part of the book to help them on that next journey on how can you lift the message from the page into their life? Do you have derivative offerings? Are you doing speaking, coaching, consulting, online, whatever? How is the book a business card for something more for you?"
Yeah, it is always about what's next. In fact, right,
Yeah.
about a little before we got on our call here, I was talking with one of my coaching clients, and it was like, Jim, I want to do this. Do you think this is a good idea? I won't go into all of it, but I said, well, is that the thing, or is that the thing going to lead more people into your
Yeah.
main thing?
Sure.
So I mean, I have no
Mhm.
idea how much money I've made. I know we've done thousands, tens of thousands, maybe 100,000 books. I just have no clue. But I know this, it probably didn't fill my boat with diesel fuel one time from Amazon.
Right.
However, these books have made that lifestyle possible. So it
That's
is not,
it.
yeah, it's not
That's
about
it.
the book per se. It's about what the book is going to do for you.
You
And
just you can so you just hit on something I wanna add if you're cool with it.
okay. Yeah.
I think every author, if you wanna go down this path, I think you need to have an honest conversation about what success looks like to you. Because
Hmm.
sometimes people think you write a book and I'm gonna be a millionaire with passive income, or I wanna sell 1,000,000 copies, right? Like that's one type of author's success. But what you just acknowledged and what I acknowledge are in alignment because I don't know how many books I've sold, to be honest. I mean, I guess I could research it. I don't really care. That is not
That's
my
right.
means
I
of
don't
success.
care.
What the book has done for me, it has allowed me to launch a business, to do speaking engagements, to help authors that are like, I mean, dozens and dozens all around the world. Like what it has done is not quantifiable. It is much bigger than a single book. But if I hadn't written that book, Jim, I would never be doing what I'm doing today.
Yeah. So when I wrote my first book, The Magic of Newsletter Marketing, because I was the newsletter guru, that was my main business at the time. But then as I broadened out the scope from retention based,
Mm,
getting referrals, then just general business growth and profits, etc. That's when I got into coaching.
yeah.
So it was like I most people will probably appreciate this, but you had your first kid. You're like, how could I ever love a kid as much as this one? Then the
Yes.
next one comes. It's like, how am I going to love this kid? And then you see it. It's like, oh my God.
Your heart
And
just grows.
and for me, 4 times, right? And now 4 grandkids.
Free
But
here.
it's like,
Oh,
what I'm saying is the first book, what it did for me was astronomical. The
yeah,
second book, it doubled it. So I
yeah,
said, okay, I can get into writing books. I suck as a writer, but I got a very good editor to make me
yeah,
sound like I'm intelligent. And so, but every book has been with a reason and a purpose and a strategy. There is a strategy beyond the good
yep,
looking covers and seeing my face on there.
exactly.
But anyway, so we're really running low on time, and I'm gonna. So I always hate to put people on the spot. 'Cause I don't know why I don't think of this before we're in the green room. Can we go like maybe 5 minutes longer, or
Yeah,
are you
go
good?
for
Okay,
it. I'm
okay,
down.
good. Nobody's ever said no, but they're probably going, shit, cancel my next appointment, right? Pardon my
No,
French.
totally. I love it.
Okay, so let's talk about it. Let's give some because I know for a fact you've inspired people and motivated people, which is my highest goal for this podcast. But let's give a little bit of nitty gritty. Talk
Okay.
about book promotion.
Mm,
Somebody's got a book, somebody launched a book, social
yep,
media, email, and they've
yep.
sold some books, but literally the book could do so much more. What would be a
Yes.
couple really good usable tips for that?
Oh, well, like perfect timing. And I'm just going to throw out here that actually, speaking of books, I have a pre order on a book that's coming out this month that will give you all the stuff. So
Hmm.
go get it on Amazon. It's Make Your Author Impact, EM with a capital P as a play off of Empower. Make Your Author Impact um, is the book. But let me extrapolate
Okay.
a really, really cool part of that book. And it's honestly the method of how I help authors. So we call it the author impact method. And here's how it works. I am a believer if you want to make your biggest impact, whether that is selling books, business, reach, whatever, you have to first start with having a really strong author platform. And your author platform is then I'll just define it, it's your conduit to help you sell books. So for some people, that's a website, social media, speaking platform. Sometimes it's through strategic partnerships. It's not independently any of those, but you want to make sure your platform's strong, consistent, clear, and
And if I can
focused.
interrupt you, sometimes
Yeah,
your platform includes a separate website just for the book, even though it's
good.
probably on your main website.
It could. Yeah, you gotta get in the mind of who is gonna consume your message and what do
Because
you wanna do with it.
yeah, there was a point where I did about 300 podcast interviews on the other side of the mic that you're on, in about a 2 year period, 2 to 3 year period when I was really writing. And so each time, instead of just giving, getjimpalmer.com, I'd give
Yeah,
sticklikeglubebook.com or
yeah,
decideforsuccessbook.com.
yep.
Basically, just come up and add the word book, and it makes it memorable. So go ahead.
Absolutely,
Sorry.
absolutely. So I always say this is a missed opportunity because it's not shiny and fun. Many authors don't want to
Hmm.
jump to the platform. You must please get your platform in place because if not, anything you're doing to sell books is like spaghetti throwing, and very few pieces of spaghetti will stick. You
Mm.
need to be able to drive someone to something, and they need to see you're credible and professional. So author platform first. The next part, so I want you to think of like throwing a rock in the water and the ripples. This is kind of the effort of what our impact method does. But the next kind of big ripple is your connections. So many authors get very uncomfortable with this. And let me tell you, I think all of us are one or two generations or degrees away from the people who need our message, our book, our business, our product, whatever.
Mm.
But that in between, that 1 to 2 degrees, are usually people who already know you and trust you and love you and are happy to tell other people about it. But you haven't told them about it. So if you don't talk about what you're doing and what you offer in a very authentic and value focused way, you are not taking advantage of an army of people that are your warm and hot leads who you don't have to convert or convert. They already are on board. They remember you in diapers. They think you're cool. They remember when you had braces and like, a weird accent. Like they know you at a different level and they love you anyways. So if they find out that you have a book and they know how to help you, oh my gosh. So I love connecting and leveraging your connections to help you launch the book to success, to help you kind of become a street team, and to be a door opener for strategic opportunities. And then the
Now,
third, oh yeah, see here, I'm
I
like, "Woo,
yeah,
stop me.
because I am the worst at that, right?
Yeah, we all are.
I will step up and help anybody. I'll
Mhm,
share your message. I'll do this, anything, but
mhm.
then I don't ask people, not because of even
Yeah.
reciprocity. I don't like asking people to do things for me. It's just maybe it's a character flaw. So when I wrote the book Decide, and my good friend and my own personal mindset coach Melanie Benson said, Jim Palmer, the I will promote your book, but if you don't ask at least 12 other people, I won't talk to you for a year.
I
I'm
love
like, all right.
it.
I know she really threw down the gauntlet, and I did, and Decide sold a ton of books.
Yeah.
Maybe that.
Okay. So you've hit the nail on the head, and I want those listening to just think about this, whether it's a book or your business, whatever. Okay. So you are doing something because you have value to give somebody. And if
Hmm.
you don't tell the people in your life about it, you're being selfish.
Yeah.
You're being selfish and you're hoarding it to yourself. Now, I come from a background in nonprofit and I remember asking people for donations was quite uncomfortable. And somebody
Hmm.
once told me, when you don't ask, you're making the decision for somebody else.
Oh,
The
that's
answer
good.
is already no. So if you
Hmm.
ask, what's the worst they're going to say? No, you've already thought it was that anyways,
Wow. You
right?
should you should teach sales too, because that's really a
Well,
good
marketing and
strategy.
sales, they're together kind of sorta.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, so I mean, you must like don't hoard it. If you're going to write a book, it's because you believe in something the world needs to hear. So allow other people to be a part of it and to help you.
So probably the last question I want to ask you, because I want to give you a chance to talk about your book and website and stuff.
Yeah.
Actually, I can probably squeeze in a couple more. I know you're also big on podcasts, which
Yeah.
several of my clients, but Adam Homey's big on podcasts, created the Reach program. But why would somebody who's authoring a book want to also host a podcast?
Oh my gosh. So I have a host a podcast, the Empowered
Hmm.
Author Podcast.
Good name.
Thank you. And if you go to the empoweredauthorpodcast.com, you can download all that goodness. And actually, the entire first season of the podcast is on how and why authors should consider hosting a podcast. And
Ah,
here's why. People consume information differently today, but there's something beautiful that podcasts allow for authors. When you are reading a book, the author, the reader is conceptualizing who you are and your nuances and your voice and your message. But when they have the chance to hear you, there is a connection that happens. People have a deeper connection to somebody that they can audibly consume as well. And so I love podcasts for authors, both to deepen your relationship with readers, but I love using it for innovative ways, like um, hidden podcast episodes as a part of your lead magnet for your website, leveraging it for a launch team or a launch, deepening character development. The list goes on. I'm a freaking love podcasts. And it's probably because I love to talk, but I love podcasts. And I think authors should be looking at it both as an opportunity to host one. Not everybody should, but some can. And I think it's now called in the industry micro media. And I think it's a beautiful micro media platform for authors to spread the words about their books. So they should be guesting on podcasts too.
everybody should have a podcast. I think that, it's interesting that, when I was growing up and I was a rock and roll group in my teens, and then music has always been important
I
to me.
love rock and roll. I have a
Oh
whole
my
chapter
God,
on it.
I had like
Love it.
$1,000 sound systems in my car. Now, because of all that, I'm half deaf actually. So if I can just hear something in my car, I'm happy. But
Yes.
my wife and I listen to podcasts,
Yep.
right? Because we
Yep.
don't want the music real loud. And if it's soft and you got road noise, I don't hear it anyway. So we listen to voice, and there's
And
thousands and
anything.
tens of thousands of podcasts on things we're interested in.
And you can go very niche, and that is beautiful for authors, both in writing your book and promoting it, and also in hosting the podcast. But here's my only tip, and you would
Okay.
probably agree, Jim. I don't want you to host a podcast until you have a business strategy around it. Hosting a podcast can be pricey. It's a time investment. It is, and if you don't have a business reason, what happens is you will stop. You will not make
Hmm.
it like you to 500 plus episodes.
Yeah, you need
So
a plan.
you need a plan. You need a plan. It shouldn't be the strategy. It should be a tactic in your marketing strategy. And when it's a
That's exactly
tactic in
right.
the strategy, then there's a purpose to why you're doing it.
So my good buddy Phil, who's he's a great writer, and he wrote a
Mm,
wonderful book, and it's done really well. And he wrote it with a cause and but I think Phil could
love that
actually
message.
just read parts of the book and elaborate, and that could be his podcast.
That would be amazing.
I know. So anyway, Phil, there you go, bud. So my last question, I promise, is when I was kind of checking you out for over the last week, getting ready for the interview, you're all over social media. You do a really good job, which is
Thank
no
you.
surprise to me given your talent.
Thank
But
you.
how important is social media, and how many platforms should the average
Mm.
entrepreneur or author be on?
Okay, I'm going to pull back the curtain and I'm going to share a secret.
Okay.
I had a client of mine a couple of months ago say something like, "Oh, hey, Stephanie, how are you? What's going on? I see you all over social. Like, life seems good." I'm like, "I don't get on social very much." She's like,
Mm,
"What?" I'm like, "Oh, no, no, no. My social media is strategic." So I am very methodical, and we do a lot of social media strategy and planning so that we don't have to live on social. We can
yeah.
leverage social. So I do not, I'm gonna go against the grain. I do not believe that you should be everywhere. And I don't believe you have to do all the things. I actually wrote a blog about it. Something like, if you can't swim, why would you jump into a lake without a life jacket? If you can't juggle, why would you do more than what your hands can hold? Like, I want you to really take a step back and consider, what do you like doing, and where do your readers engage?
Hmm.
That intersection's important. So, like, for instance,
The
I hate
engagement is
Twitter.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, you have, so like, but if you don't like it, the people that are following you can feel it. If you like a place but your people aren't there, that's a problem. So there's a beautiful in between. And I think as long as you are focused in wherever you are and methodical and consistent, it will pay off. I do think
Mhm.
all authors need to be on LinkedIn. That's my non-negotiable because people go to LinkedIn for conversion, and I think that you must
Right.
be there. But the
Okay.
other ones, I would say consider where you're comfortable, what you like doing, and where your reader is. But don't overwhelm yourself. Like get really good at one or two, and then you can add on more if you want.
Mm, good advice. Um, so I agree with where the action is and where you have
Yeah.
where you're what was that word you just used? Where you're connecting with people. I know there's a
Yes.
yes,
Engagement.
engagement. Thank you.
Yes.
Boing. Getting
You have
late.
to engage.
And so about a month ago, my Instagram got hacked. I mean, really bad, shut down. I couldn't get
That's
into it. There's nobody
awful.
to help me. And you know what I said? You know what? I haven't missed it. I mean, it's
Right.
gone. Like
Right.
Facebook, and I run like my business page. I run
Yep.
the Facebook, Build Your Dream Business Now that you're a part of, and I
Yep.
run my LinkedIn. And people, if they see me, occasionally will say, "Wow, you're everywhere." I will spend
Yep.
probably if I spend 20 minutes a day
Mhm.
because I put things on
Yep.
there and here, and I might change up the time just a little bit,
Yep.
and
Yep.
that's where I get the interaction. And what I've also
Absolutely.
learned, and believe me, I'm the farthest thing from a social media expert, but I've learned that I can post 3 or 4 things in a 10-minute period and be gone for the day. And those things just show up sporadically. And how do I know that? It's because the feed of people that like it and comment. Somebody's
Mm.
commenting on stuff I posted 2 days ago, so it's
Yep.
always in there. So if
Yes.
somebody, well, don't launch everything. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to spend all day on social media. So
Do you know my
anyway,
answer to that, Jim? Is it's
yes,
you can talk to people who will tell you they outplay the algorithm game. You should do this and not this. I take a step back and go, what will you do? What is feasible in your life?
yeah,
To me, something is better than nothing. And so if it's easier for you to spend 20 minutes and do your thing and then go live life and help your clients and do it. You know, and it will work out for you. To me, the underlying thread is consistency. And as long as you constantly
consistency and
show up.
persistency, and one more word, repurposing. I am
Yeah,
well,
smarter, not harder.
by the way, but let me tie this all back in. Once you write even one book, you've got content and blog posts for years.
That intellectual property goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So Stephanie,
Absolutely.
your wisdom is beyond your apparent years because you look like you're
Oh,
22.
you're
But
so
I
s
mean,
oh, I love you.
what a fun interview. And folks, if you're, we always get a nice little audience, but we get most of our on oh, good Lord. What time is it? It's
I was gonna say it's
4:30.
5 o'clock somewhere.
I
On,
know.
they're watching it later.
Replay. Yeah. So
Replay.
hashtag replay. Tell Stephanie thank you. I'm sure if you ask a question, she'll,
I'd be
tag her
happy
and she'll
to.
probably answer it. But she will be on retreat, personal retreat this weekend. So do it now.
And
And
everyone
also,
should do that.
if you are watching this live and then you want to see the replay because it always then gets buried, as you probably know because you do follow my awesome social media, I've now resurrected or rebranded the Dream Business YouTube page, which
Mm,
to my astonishment, because I
I
kind of
love
not paid
YouTube.
attention to it, it's
Love
over
it.
6,000 subscribers. Now it's got videos from me 10 years ago. Hey, I'm Jim Palmer. I
Awesome.
want to share some brilliant business advice with you. And I look kind of silly, but I left all that stuff there. But now I'm repopulating it with all of these live interviews.
It's
So anyway,
awesome. I
Stephanie,
do love
I'm
that.
sure people want to connect with you and we'll say thank you here, but connect with you somewhere else. Where would they do that?
So I am most visible on LinkedIn. So find me on LinkedIn, send me a direct message there, connect with me, follow me. I love learning how the messages I share impact you or questions you have. I'm always happy to share that. I also dabble on Instagram and Facebook, but definitely on LinkedIn. Then you can also visit my website, empowerprgroup.com. We actually have, oh, thank you, Phil. You're so sweet. We actually have what I like to call a help me help you form. And so on our connect page on empowerprgroup.com, there's a little form. I hate using the word form, so I'm calling it the help me help you. When you fill that out, I offer free 15-minute chit chats, meaning let's just get on the phone. How can I pour into you? How can I help you? And then because I'm all about empowerment, right? Because if I help you, I know you
That's
can help
right.
someone else. So fully, truly take advantage of that. You fill out the form, you get an access to my calendar.
And believe me, I've known Stephanie 2 weeks. I feel like it's been 20 years, but she totally believes the rising tide lifts all boats. So she's genuine when
Mhm.
she says talk to her 50 minutes. Stephanie, thank you
Yeah.
so much. This was an
Thank
amazing.
you.
Now it's 40 minutes. So there
It
you
was
go.
awesome.
Give me an inch, I'll take a mile. Hey, folks, that wraps up this very special interview with my guest, Stephanie Feger. What an awesome interview. Make sure you comment, hit replay or relike or whatever you're going to do
Mhm.
there. You know what to do. I highly recommend you connect with her, learn from her, and follow her. You can connect with me if you should like to do that at
Mhm.
getjimpalmer.com. And who wouldn't? If you're interested in joining the Dream Business Mastermind and Coaching Program, that's Dream Biz Coaching, dreambizcoaching.com, led by me and about 28 other very smart entrepreneurs. It's a great, great program. You can get free digital copies of all of my books, boom, 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 at Barnes & Noble. This is part of my legacy program because Captain Jim doesn't want to work 80 hours a week anymore, but I can give all this information for free at Amazon in terms of Kindle, Barnes & Noble as a Nook book, or the iBookstore. And that is that. But until this time next week, another fantastic interview. And it is another good one. Slips my mind at the moment. I am Captain Jim Palmer, the Dream Business Coach, and you take good care. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Thank you.